We will continue our discussion of feedback workflow by discussing the feedback tools available within Schoology assignments and how they support the iterative learning process. The iterative process can be interpreted as the drafting process that leads towards improvement over time towards a central goal, objective, or expectation. This may look like students submitting rough drafts of assignments that require teacher feedback, or students submitting completed assignments that need to be improved before they are considered acceptable. In either event, understanding how to provide feedback within Schoology is essential to supporting students toward this end. We will be switching between teacher and student perspectives during this lesson. Text will appear on the screen to indicate each viewpoint. For this lesson, we will be taking a look at Schoology assignments, and then, in particular, Schoology assignments that utilize the Google Drive app, as the iterative process is different for both. We're going to start by taking a look at the iterative process workflow for Schoology assignments that are non-Google Drive app Schoology assignments. So the typical workflow, if we start on the left, is student submits their work by clicking this button. It then goes to the teacher, who will provide feedback in the form of grades, comments, rubric scores, personal messages. And then the feedback goes to the student. And we see on the far right, student then had the opportunity to view the feedback and then resubmit the updated version of the work by clicking the Resubmit Assignment button. In this way, the student, for any changes that they make to the current version of their work, they're going to need to resubmit it so that the teacher can now see that. And so what it's indicated by the green arrow is that once the students resubmit an assignment, the green arrow directs us back to teacher feedback, and then the cycle starts again. And so we see a loop that can develop where you have multiple iterations of the same document that students are resubmitting that teachers can then provide feedback on until we come to the culminating submission. We're now going to walk through this process, and we're going to think about when teachers setting up an assignment, what are some feedback protocols the teacher can think about as they're creating an assignment? And then once students do submit an assignment, what are the options teachers have to provide feedback on the Schoology assignments that are non-Google Drive apps? And we'll look at multiple versions of that. So from the teacher perspective, I have a sample assignment here that's a non-Google Drive app assignment, as indicated in the chart that we just looked at. So we're going to edit this, and we're going to go through some of the options here with feedback in mind as we do this. Go ahead and give it a name. Now the description box can be an interesting place to embed and be proactive about the feedback that you provide your students. So think about, are there any video tutorials that you need to provide for students in case they get stuck on an assignment, so they don't have to maybe communicate with you? There's something already there for them to look at. So we have, video tutorials, sentence frames, structuring the way the description box looks for students, and so that it's easy to flow through. Is it chunked? Are there bullets and indentations that are here? And these are all things that are just being proactive in anticipating things that students may need, which is part of the feedback cycle. So when we come down here, we set our due date and then the time. Now think about, when you're doing your time, if you're feedback oriented, what is a good time for students to submit their work when you're going to actually be ready to give them feedback? It may be 11:59. Maybe you do your grading in the evening and you say 3 p.m. because you know you're going to get on it right after school. So just think about that in terms as well. When we go down here to our scale, of course, either the scale or the rubric, go ahead and choose what point value you're going to assign to this, or if a rubric is going to be more appropriate for you based on the sessions that you saw prior about the rubric. Additionally, we have learning objectives. Are you going to align any learning objectives possibly either to a rubric or to this assignment itself? Is it specific enough as far as the skill demonstration that students need to have where you can align it to a learning objective? You can have custom learning objectives. There's tons of learning objectives already built in. And then we know that the prior session went over learning objectives. So really considering how we add learning objectives and thinking about that as part of the feedback cycle as we create assignments for our students. Next, we take a look at the individually assigned button here. We talked about grading groups. So do we need to have a grading group? Is this an accommodation? Is this a modified assignment that needs to go to a separate group of students? And then maybe the other assignment that we make goes to everybody else, and you think about in terms of using grading groups in that way. Or maybe all of your students are in a group, and this is just a group activity, and you're pushing it out, and you want to organize them in that way. And we have the same options that we had before: submissions enabled or disabled, published, unpublished. Before we get to this chart, I do want to talk about comments. Your students have the opportunity to comment on work. So if you're going to be using the comment feature, which creates a stream underneath the assignment for feedback, this may be a good mechanism for students to just simply ask questions about maybe the assignment that they have, or the directions maybe are unclear. But just thinking about ways that you can provide opportunities for students to provide feedback to you, and this might be a great way for you to do it. I want to talk about this option really briefly, is grade statistics enabled. By default, this is disabled. Grade statistics, what this will do is this will provide an icon. After a student submits their assignment, there'll be a little graph icon that they can click, and it'll break down a little bit of the submission and assignment details about what other students are doing in the class, who's turned it in, how many people have turned it in. It won't provide names. It might tell you the average of what's the average score on this assignment. So it gives the students a little bit of a big picture feedback about, in general, what's the rest of the class doing with regards to this activity. Now that I have some work to grade as a teacher, I see that my 4 students in this course have turned in assignments here and indicated by needs grading. We're going to take a second and look at a couple of these features over here to the right section here. We're going to take a look. We can edit. We can do anything we want there. We know that. We can view grade information. Now, as far as feedback goes, this is the statistics bar that I referenced in the other video right before this. If we click View Stats, we see that we have the option to get kind of like a bird's eye view of how my students are performing on this assessment here based on the grading that I've done. I haven't done any grading yet, therefore everything's at 0. We're going to take a look at this again after I finish grading, when we talk through the feedback features that we can offer our students when we do go through and grade these. So the way that this is structured is I've submitted a different type of assignment for each one of these students to show you the different types of assignments, number one, that the students can submit to the Schoology assignment, but also the common features that I have and how I as a teacher can interact and comment on them, and what they look like from the teacher perspective when you do go to grade them. So let's take a look. We're going to go ahead and view our submissions here. We'll start by Eric Brown. We notice it populates into the screen. Those of you that went through the 100 course, we talked about how to grade down here. We see the different students, and I can click through all student responses that are here. And now a Schoology assignment, basically what it's doing is it's taking a capture of whatever the students turn in. So it's a snapshot, basically a static image of what they submitted into this Schoology assignment. So for example, Eric Brown here has submitted an image. Maybe you're having your students turn in images here. One of the first things you may want to do for your perspective is fit to height. You can make it full screen. You can adjust the zoom here. Over here we have thumbnails. If there were 2 pages, you could scroll up and down between that like a document outline. If there were text here, you could select text. We'll take a look at these features later. One of the features we do want to note is that you can add notes to anything just like you would in a Google Doc. So if I click this area here, I notice that I can see the note here on this certain area. You can insert your comment as a teacher here. And that way you can give formative feedback to your students in this way. One of our recommendations is to really think about what type of feedback you're giving your students. If this assignment is aligned to a rubric of some kind that is also aligned to learning objectives, then your comments would be beneficial to align with some of the language that's in the learning objectives or the standards that you have aligned with this rubric in this assignment. Inserting comments, thinking about things like good job or not so much. How can we translate these into something that's a little more skill-based? So referencing the skill so that the students are understanding what elements of the skill that they're missing, not necessarily if they did it right or wrong, but being how they did it right or wrong in reference to the rubric or the expectations set forth in the description of the assignment itself. Of course, we have grade feedback here. We'll get to that in a second. Oops, let's go back. So I see that this is one submission here. Here's my comment for here. This will show up to the student from the student's perspective when they go look at this. I also have a drawing tool. I can circle if I'd like to. And once I go ahead and I do that, I can do any types of drawing that's here. Once I do that, it's going to acknowledge it. I can change the style immediately. I can change it and make it wider, make it thinner, make it different colors. And I can delete it if I want to, and if I'm done, I click done. When I'm done, my new draw will take on the qualities of what I changed it to here. And then it tells me exactly, or tells the student exactly what portion they may need. And again, if you want to state something with that, you can then include a note here, maybe referencing this shaded area here, and then you can insert a comment and really be a little more targeted and specific about what pieces of this image or text, for example, what they're missing or what skills that they are really doing well. On the side over here, we can give other comments if we want to upload a file, maybe a resource. Hey, check this link out, check this PDF out, check this image out. This is an example of what we're looking for. So you can do that there, and the students will see that. You can also give audio video recording feedback. So I can choose audio video or audio only. And then when the student opens this up, they will see on the right side here of that image. Let's go ahead and test that out. Let's do an audio only. Go ahead and start your recording. Go ahead and give your skill-based comment, however you want to reference the feedback to your students. Go ahead and stop your recording. You can preview it if you'd like to, and go ahead and insert your recording over here, and we see that the code is inserted. You can put a text comment if you'd like to, and then you simply post. And so the student can then view this in the stream on their right when they go to access their comments over here. Additionally, let's say we're ready to give it a grade, whether that's a rubric or a point scale. You can also insert another comment here if you'd like to, and then you can show it to the student. So that means when the student goes to the grade book and they see their grade, they'll be able to see this comment that you've listed here. In addition to when they open the assignment, they'll be able to see these other audio recordings in this other type over here. We can hide comments or close them as well that we see here. So there's lots of different feedback that we can give to students based on the skills that we're expecting them or the content we're expecting them to know for the assignment itself. We're going to go ahead and switch to another type of assignment here. I'm going to click the right arrow, and I see that Mary Jones has typed her response. So this is her response. Maybe you just want your students to type a response into the assignment. They can do that here. They can include hyperlinks. You can check them and click them. They can include hyperlinks here, or they can put URLs. Now I see here that what Mary tried to do is she tried to embed a YouTube video in the assignment itself. You cannot embed YouTube videos. This is the error message you get. So this will be a great opportunity to comment here and give her feedback about what she needs to do to get this video working properly. And again, with Schoology, students are going to have lots of questions, lots of pitfalls that they're going to run through. And so being able to communicate with them will be really important. Okay, let's go to the next students. Jennifer Miller. Okay, this was me. There's Jennifer Miller. You can see her. This was a student video audio response. So maybe you want your students to respond in a video and audio way to them, similar to a Flipgrid activity. Now these will take a little bit of time to upload. When their students submit these, they're not going to be immediately available. Schoology has to render them. So they do take some time, so just be patient when you have video and audio being uploaded. You can go ahead and play it here.
Hello.
There I am. And again, you would draft accordingly. You notice that for video responses, you don't have the toolbar at the top to annotate at this time, but you do comment over here, so you can do that. So you may have to be pointed over here if you have a video. You may have to say, specify the time, and then whatever input you have for them, because you cannot mark on it because it's a video here. We'll go to the last one here, and we see that this is a traditional Google Doc where our students would be completing this. Now, because this was a Google Doc and it's a Schoology assignment, it's a non-Google Drive app. Again, it's just going to take a snapshot of what that doc looks like. And you're going to have all these tools that we have already illustrated how to use earlier. Here, and all the same tools are here. So we'll just go ahead and give it a fictitious score for now. We'll go back and we'll grade the other ones. Oof, no bueno there. And then go back, and then we'll just give some scores here. And so now students are being notified when they have their notifications set up that they are receiving feedback from the teacher. When we're finished, we can simply exit out. We see that everything's listed here. And now we do want to take a look at the view statistics. Now that we have some statistics here, It gives us a bird's eye view about how our class is typically doing on an assignment like this. 4 grades, max points, highest is 80, lowest is 25, average is 56. Standard deviation, whether that's meaningful to you or not, I'm not exactly sure. Median, we have here, one of the differences between an average and a median, average is going to take into account, all the scores and divide by the number of scores that there are. But the higher the median is where most of the scores are located. And so if we have a higher median, most of our scores are going to be at the higher end than they are at the lower end. And so we want to see a higher median. That means the more percentage of our students are performing better than the other ones. From a student perspective, now that my work is graded, I'm going to go back and receive the feedback that my teacher has provided for me. So here I am logged in as Eric Brown. I see that I received a 75 out of 100. And now let's check my view stats. If I got a 75 out of 100, let's get a little bit of a comparison about how I'm doing in comparison to my peers in the classroom. We have the same set of data that is here provided for the teacher as provided for the student. We see that if I have a 75, I'm performing better than many students in the classroom, and I'm higher than the average here. So it's just a bird's eye view in general, some feedback for students if you activate those grading diagnostics when you create your assignment. So now as a student, I want to get direct feedback on my assignment. I'm going to go ahead and click my assignment. And here's exactly what it looks like for me as a student. I see that all of the feedback that the teacher provided is here. I see the audio recording is here that I can click all in one spot for me to go. I can actually add a conversation here, so I can type something. I can insert a comment, and then I can post that. And if my teacher has their notifications set up to receive emails or text when they get comments on their post, then they'll see that. Otherwise, I can go back to the assignment and see that as well. So here's another feedback stream, communication stream that can exist. Once the student sees it, there may be information here. GUHSC Tech says you need to do this, you need to do that, make sure some changes. Again, giving targeted, purposeful, structured feedback to students that are aligned to the skills that you're expecting to them is going to greatly increase their ability to be able to perform those functions. So after viewing this feedback, I know exactly what I need to do to resubmit my image. I'm going to go ahead and now as a student, I can resubmit my assignment. I can't change anything about the one that's submitted, but it has the feedback on it. So I'm going to resubmit assignment. I'm going to re-upload the image. And let's say that this time, I spruced it up, added some Monte Vista to it. Shout out. So now I'm going to resubmit my image, and I see that it's labeled as resubmitted to revision 2. And I'm done at this point. From the teacher perspective, when students resubmit for the Schoology assignment, we're back here. Now we notice that this looks like the first one that Eric Brown submitted, his first image. To toggle between revisions, what we're going to do is there's revision 1, we can toggle, and we can toggle back to revision 2 here. And so we can quickly identify if they've made the proper changes that we suggested. Again, you can use any of these features to provide more feedback if you'd like to, and use all the features that we have before. You can go ahead and make an update to the grade. The grade in the gradebook is going to be the most recent update that you make to this grade right here. Notice there's only one grade listed, but we can toggle between assignments. So revision 1, the grade stays 85. Revision 2, the grade stays 85 because 85 is the most recent grade that I've provided that student based on their most recent revision. At this point,